Welcome back to another episode of Why Is This in the Bible? Today we're going to ask the question about an entire book in the Bible. We often get to parts of the scriptures and we wonder why God put them there. And one of those parts that people have often debated and asked, why did God put this in the Bible, is actually an entire one of the books, which is the book of Song of Solomon or the Song of Songs. And a lot of people have wondered over the years and have speculated on why God put it there. If you read the Song of Songs, you will find in it some very passionate and even erotic text throughout it, where it's this discussion of the relationship of a man and a woman, and it can be somewhat embarrassing almost if you're reading that with your kids some night doing your home devotions. And so the question is there, why is it in the Bible? What do you think? I wonder, what do you think the answer to that might be? Chapter 1, verse 1, the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. May he kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Your oils have a pleasing fragrance. Your name is like purified oil. Therefore the maidens love you. Draw me after you, and let us run together. The king has brought me into his chambers. So you've just heard me in my voice, my male voice, read the first few verses of Song of Songs. And for me, married to my beautiful wife, I find that awkward. Did you? It's an awkward thing. We read this love letter in the middle of the Bible, where it starts to talk about kiss me and take me into your chambers, and it gets a little uncomfortable. And then there's parts of the Song of Psalms that are even more intense than that. And so it is an interesting question why it's in the Bible. And scholars over the centuries have debated this, trying to decide, why did God put this in here? And there seems to be two kind of big answers that sort of rise to the surface of us understanding why God put it in the scriptures. On the one side, you have people in a camp that seem to think that this is an allegory, that it's meant to be a description of what our relationship with God is supposed to be like, that we're supposed to have this kind of lover's relationship with God. Now, I don't quite cling to that particular view as much as some do, but I understand why people say that. And I think to some degree, that's valid. To some degree, the scriptures do talk about God's people being the wife of God. The New Testament speaks of the church being the bride of Christ. And so certainly there is an absolute necessary connection in our understanding of marriage and God, that marriage, human marriage, is meant to be symbolic and to be an indicator of our relationship with God. And so to some degree, certainly, the Song of Songs can be applied with that kind of an understanding. The other way that scholars often look at the Song of Solomon is not so much as an allegory, but perhaps there to give us an understanding of what a good and healthy, loving, marital relationship is supposed to be like. And I kind of lean more to that side. I tend to think that that's probably more the reason why it's in the scriptures. And when we go through that book, and it is a poem, when we go through, we do need to take some time to sort of analyze it with a bit of a poetic eye and understand what are the images here for, what are they trying to communicate. And it takes a little work to try and to draw out of that some guidance for what our lives with our spouses should be like. It validates some of the things that quite often people in religious communities often set aside as not being godly, like, for instance, having a passionate affair with your wife or your husband, or having a sexual relationship with your spouse. That's from God. And a book like the Song of Psalms, it reminds us that, that's actually a godly thing. That's inspired scripture. And so there's that value. Either way, whether you look at it as maybe somewhat insightful into our relationship with God, or whether you see it as insightful into what our relationships with our spouses should be like, either way, God placed it in the scriptures, and there is value probably in both of those ways to some degree in us studying the Song of Songs and understanding why it's there. So next time you're reading through it, maybe you want to just remind yourself that, hey, you know what? God made passion. God made love, and God made relationships. And They're good things from God.